Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai, Shri Giraj Govardhana Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta, Volume 4. The chapter is entitled India, the Dancing White Elephants. We'll read a little bit, we'll comment a little bit, we'll read a little bit. That's how it goes. The sand of Chowpatty Beach was fine and clean. The audience numbered in the thousands. Sadhus sat on stage, Prabhupada and his followers among them. It was twilight. The sky above the Arabian Sea was cloudy, and a pleasant breeze was stirring. So the setting is Mumbai. We're in Mumbai, which is one of the major cities in India. And the description is happening of a Pandal program at where Srila Prabhupada is present. There had already been 2 lectures expounding the great Mayavad philosophy, and now it was time for Prabhupada to speak, the last scheduled speaker of the evening. The audience was eager to hear him. His accomplishments in the West had caused great curiosity, especially now that he had arrived in Bombay, and his devotees were chanting daily in public. Prabhupada's disciples, bored and exasperated by the preceding 2 hours of Hindi oratory, could scarcely wait any longer for Prabhupada to speak. But Prabhupada, instead of addressing the audience, turned to his disciples and said, "Begin chanting." As soon as the devotees began the kirtan, little Saraswati stood and began to dance. Following her, the other devotees rose and began to dance. And as the kirtan came alive with mridanga and kartals, the dancing and chanting of the devotees seemed to disturb some of the sadhus on stage, who rose one by one and left. The audience, however, responded enthusiastically, many of them standing and clapping. After 5 minutes of ecstatic kirtan, the devotees spontaneously jumped down onto the sand and headed towards the audience. Thousands in the crowd rose to their feet and began to move along with the devotees in a dance, backward and forward. Indians began crying in uncontrolled happiness, overwhelmed by the genuine Krishna bhakti of these foreigners. Never before had such a thing happened. Policemen and press reporters joined in the chanting and dancing. Chowpatty Beach was in an uproar of Hare Krishna Kirtan as Prabhupada and his disciples showed the potency of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. After about 10 minutes, the kirtan ended, though a tumultuous unrest pervaded the talkative crowd. 15 minutes elapsed before all of the people returned to their seats and the program could continue. The devotees had left the stage and taken their seats on the ground level, leaving Prabhupada alone on stage. Prabhupada's voice echoed over the public address system. "Ladies and gentlemen, I was requested to speak in Hindi, but I am not very accustomed to speaking in Hindi. Therefore, the authorities in this meeting have allowed me to speak in English. I hope you will follow me, because it is Bombay and most people will be speaking English. The problem is that as this evening's speaker, His Holiness Swami Akhandananda Ji spoke to you, how can we make everyone accustomed to take up good habits and sadachar? I think this age, Kali Yuga, there is many faults." Prabhupada went on to explain the power of Lord Chaitanya's movement to clean the hearts of everyone, and he referred to the 2 great rogues whom Lord Chaitanya had delivered, Jagai and Madai. Now we are saving wholesale Jagai and Madais. Therefore, if we want peace, if we want to be situated on the Sada Achar platform, then we must spread the Harinam Maha Mantra all over the world. And it has been practically proven. The American and European Vaishnavas who have come here, who have chanted Hare Krishna mantra, they were cow flesh eaters, they were drunkards, they were illicit sex mongers, they were all kinds of gamblers. But having taken to this Krishna conscious movement, they have given up everything abominable. Sadachar has come automatically. There are no more meat eaters, there are no more gamblers, there are no more sex mongers, there are no more intoxicators. They have not even taken tea, they do not even take coffee, they do not even smoke, which I think is very rare to be found in India. But they have given up. Why? Because they have taken to this Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada ended his talk after about 5 minutes. I do not feel that I have very much to say. you can see what is the result of Krishna consciousness. It is not something artificial. It is there in everyone. I have not done anything magical, but this Krishna consciousness is present in all of us. We simply have to receive it. The audience responded with cheers and a great round of applause. Prabhupada, with greater force and eloquence than the long-winded Mayavadis, had shown the essence of spiritual life, ecstatic chanting of the holy names, and he had offered the living testimony of his American disciple. Wow. Srila Prabhupada, he stood apart from all the other yogis who came to the West and all the other practitioners that were even in India. And the reason why he stood apart is that his faith in the holy name and his faith in the spiritual master was so strong that he had complete understanding in both the intellectual sense and in the realized sense that the holy name is everything. That the holy name is absolutely everything. They'd asked Srila Prabhupada, what was different? So many of your godbrothers had come to the West, or some of your godbrothers had come to the West, and many had tried to present Krishna consciousness. So what was different about that you could achieve all these things? And Srila Prabhupada said that the only thing was I had full faith in the holy name, and I 100% followed the instructions of my spiritual master. So he gave these two things as his recipe for success: full faith in the holy name and 100% following the instructions of my spiritual master. And there's humility in this comment, because in this comment he is inadvertently saying that none of it was actually me. It's because I allowed the holy name to work. I presented the holy name, and the holy name could do the rest. And because I followed what the previous acharyas had given, and therefore for those reasons, success followed. In His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj's book, The Journey Home, you can see how he had traveled, or read how he traveled from America to India in search of a spiritual master. Interestingly enough, while he was in America, the devotees were there, and they had given him a flyer that had Srila Prabhupada's face on it, and saying that there was a program happening. But somehow he never ended up going to that program, even though he kept the flyer. He journeyed on throughout Europe, going to America, going to India. And as he moves through America, through Europe, and then to India, you see how he meets all these incredible practitioners of spiritual life from different backgrounds, from different religions. And he goes through this whole journey, discovering, such impressively profound truths in these different practitioners. And finally, when he reaches India, he comes to this type of festival, actually, on the Chowpatty beach. And he sees Srila Prabhupada for the first time. And now at this point, he had gone through Christianity, some sects of Islam, through Judaism, different leaders in different parts. He had come through to India, he had seen Ram Bhaktas, and there was nothing wrong with these people. They were incredibly, profoundly, deeply spiritual, and they each gave him something, that he took with him in his journey. And then he came to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, people who worship also Lord Chaitanya. So, and he'd heard the Maha Mantra. But something, when he met Srila Prabhupada, there was something that was different. There was something that was different. And the thing that was different, when I remember when I was reading this book, was that Srila Prabhupada was the only one who had actually went back to the West to connect with everybody else there and share Krishna with them. Whereas everybody else was being Krishna conscious, but in their own space. They hadn't ventured to truly give the message of Lord Chaitanya to the rest of the world. And because Srila Prabhupada did that, he put the essence of Lord Chaitanya's movement and Lord Chaitanya's teachings on practical display. It's one thing for someone to tell you, do this and do that and your life will be happy. But it's another thing when you see the devotees dance and chant in kirtan and you see their happiness. That is a million times more impressive. I remember sitting at a Ratha Yatra, and there was somebody who I later figured was a Christian staff member at the UKZN campus in Westville. And he had said, they just keep dancing and chanting. What are they on? What are they? Are they taking something? And it impressed him. Happiness that the devotees exhibited impressed him. And they didn't have to speak of philosophy. They didn't have to tell him that chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra because Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is the highest thing. And because if you chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, you'll be free from birth and death. And you'll get the benefits of hearing the holy names and it'll cleanse your heart. They didn't have to tell him that because he saw it in the faces of those who were dancing and chanting. And so Prabhupada is doing this. He's giving the power of experience. Sometimes when someone speaks, you get intoxicated by the sound of your own voice. And if you don't get intoxicated by the sound of your own voice, you get intoxicated by the idea of presenting something that's going to impress people. But Srila Prabhupada, after everybody spoke at this festival, he was able to just step on, say the essential truths, and let the kirtan speak for itself. And he knew that this would have been the way that India was convinced. Why? Because when he traveled to India, when he came from India, and he was presenting the same philosophy to the same people, they were not budging. They were not interested. He couldn't get one person to give him one son to help spread Krishna consciousness. But when he came back to India with his dancing white elephants, when people saw that others, America, of who they looked up to, who had the money and the technology and the power, all of it, people that they looked up to, when he saw that these people had given up their general practices and had trying to become devotees, that impressed them. So when we think about preaching, when we think about sharing Krishna consciousness, the best way we can share it is by just being an example of it. Doesn't necessarily mean talking to someone. Doesn't necessarily mean putting a book in someone's hand, although it is book marathon and I could be shot for that point. But you can put a book in someone's hand, but the energy that you put with that book, when they connect you, when they see you as a person, you become the representative. So Srila Prabhupada put his dancing white elephants on stage because they're seeing their transformation, seeing the transformation in these individuals, that would bring faith. And it always is such that when we begin the process of Krishna consciousness, there is a person who instills faith in us. It's not random. It's not just like, oh wow, it's a beautiful temple, now I have faith. Or that, that the prasadam was great and now I have faith. It's usually a person, not like unanimously, but usually a person. A person instills faith. And that person instills faith because of who they are, because of how they embody Krishna consciousness. And just a side point, Jaya Shishi Radha Radhanath ki Jaya, Srila Prabhupada ki Jaya. Prabhupada has his dancing white elephants, but here in Africa, we have dancing black elephants. And they are just as powerful. They can be just as powerful. Because when the world will also see our dancing black elephants, and they will also be affected. Because they will see that the process that Srila Prabhupada, you can tell people you're not this body. But if they see a dancing black elephant, someone completely embracing the principles of Krishna consciousness, no matter what background they come from, however high background, however impoverished background, whatever means they come from, that will convince people. And so Prabhupada needed dancing white elephants for India. We in South Africa, we need some dancing black elephants. We'll read some more. A group of 20 American members of the Hare Krishna delegation. This is an excerpt, probably of an article. A group of 20 Americans, members of the Hare Krishna delegation, took over the dais. The air was filled with the beating of mridangas and the clash of cymbals and the music of the Maha Mantra. Swaying from side to side, their tufts of hair tossing in the breeze as they chanted Hare Krishna. One graying reporter, whom I had always regarded as a particularly unsentimental person, said to me in an emotion-choked voice, "Do you realize what is happening? Very soon Hinduism is going to sweep the West. The Hare Krishna movement will compensate for all our loss at the hands of the Padris through the centuries." I think this is a reference to colonization. That so much was taken away from India in the colonization. But now he was saying this compensates. This is the compensation. And this goes to speak to Srila Prabhupada, who had his years as a Gandhian man. And Bhaktisiddhanta, who told him that this Krishna consciousness movement is too important to wait for the political climate to change. And here is Srila Prabhupada showing it, that by bringing these devotees to India, he was compensating for what India had gone through, by bringing people that had come from the backgrounds of England and America, who had sort of taken over India, and also belittled the religious system, belittled the religious system that was prevalent there. But by Prabhupada bringing back Americans and Europeans and showing that they were taking up the process, he was proving that the science that the Vedas offered was much higher than any version that was used to subjugate people in the earlier years. About 25 newsmen came to a press conference on the 5th floor of Mr. Sekharia's residence. Prabhupada sat with his disciples on a large mattress and answered questions, and the devotees showed a film of the San Francisco Ratha Yatra. The reporters asked about New Vrindavan. They questioned the devotees. Why had they become sadhus? Why had they left their country? Even up till today in India, if you go there and when they see American, European, and African devotees, they'll just stop you and they will look at you, and they'll ask you 100 questions and they want to take photographs. 50, 60 years later, it's still the same impression. The next day, the press was full of stories of Prabhupada and his movement. The Times of India picked up on a particular angle. U.S. millionaire's son seeks solace in Krishna society. The article told of Giriraj renouncing his family's wealth to join Prabhupada's movement. Our newspaper quoted Giriraj. My father works hard and earns fabulous money. He also fights with my mother. My sisters ran away from the house. Thus, in spite of material comforts, nobody is happy. Wow. To think that, usually someone would not be this openly honest in a newspaper to a reporter, But the veil of allurement of the material energy is so strong that it requires someone who's able to have that brutal sense of honesty to pierce through it. So here's Giriraj Maharaj, who's now Maharaj, then Giriraj Brahmachari, who had parents who were millionaires and were willing to, like, give him those fortunes if he just left the movement. But none of that money was going to convince anybody, because the truth is that we are lured by what we don't have. So if you don't have money, you think a millionaire is fabulously happy. If you don't have beauty, you think a model is like in the best place in the world. If you don't have, if you feel like you don't have intelligence, you think the PhD is the top of everything. But when you meet these people, you realize they're just like the rest of us. They're just like the rest of us. Just like how, maybe even worse off sometimes. Just like how Giriraj Maharaj is mentioning that this was the father that brought in all the cash. But it was the same father who could not be a father, in a proper way, who was always fighting with the mother and his kids moving out of home. That wasn't a place where Giriraj Maharaj wanted to be. What he found at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet was the joyful expression of Krishna consciousness with love. And that was much more alluring, much more alluring. So therefore, we can look into ourselves and see what's our own allurements in the material energy. And then look at the world and see that, is it true? Does these things, will it really bring, it may give us the momentary pleasure, but will it give us satisfaction? Mostly if we look deep, we will see no. And if we can't see it, then life shows us in some way or the other. As far as my knowledge goes, so quoting Shamasundar, my father is very rich, but he has to take sleeping tablets every night. And there were other articles. Soon letters appeared in the letters column of the Times of India. As far as my knowledge goes, these foreign Hindus of the Hare Krishna movement cannot be equal to the native original Brahmanas and Hindus. They will have to be relegated to the lower castes. It is significant to see one of the newly converted sadhus, Sri Gopal Das, formerly Charles Poland of Chicago, stated that he was a construction worker formerly, doing Shudra's work. It would thus become necessary to allot the 3 lower castes to these foreign converts, according to their profession. Another letter stated, the Hare Krishna movement is just a sporadic fad of sentimentalists. Prabhupada said these letters should be answered, and he personally outlined replies, delegating their writing to specific disciples. Within a few days, Prabhupada's replies appeared in the press. In India, even amongst the Brahmanas in different provinces, there is no social intercourse. So if they are socially accepted or not, it doesn't matter. For example, among the qualified legal practitioners in different provinces, there may not be social intercourse. But that does not mean that they are not qualified lawyers. There is a cultural movement, and if the whole world accepts this cult, even though Indian Brahmanas do not accept it, they'll do no harm at all. We are not striving for social or political unity, but if Krishna consciousness is accepted, there will automatically be political, social, and religious unity. The fact that one of our boys was a construction worker does not mean that he belongs to the Shudra community. The Shudra community is less intelligent class or illiterate class who have no information of the value of life. In America, even the highest cultured and educated person can go to work as an ordinary construction worker because they accept the dignity of labor. So although a boy was working as a construction worker in America, he is not a Shudra. But even if he is accepted as a Shudra, Lord Krishna says that anyone who comes to him is eligible to be elevated to the highest position of going back home, back to Godhead. In a letter signed by Giriraj, Prabhupada refuted the charge that his movement was a sporadic fad of sentimentalists. How can our movement be sporadic when this science was taught in the Gita 5,000 years ago and instructed to the sun god millions of years before that? How can it be called sporadic when our activity is Sanatan Dharma, the eternal occupation of the living entity? Would faddists give up all meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling for over 5 years now? Would faddists give up friends, family, and money and get up at 4 a.m. daily, ready to go to any country in the world and preach in any conditions immediately on the request of their spiritual master? Prabhupada saw all the news coverage of the Krishna conscious movement as an aid to propagating Krishna consciousness. Even by criticizing the Krishna conscious movement, he said, the papers were broadcasting the holy name of Krishna, and Krishna's name was absolute. This is such an important point that, and psychologically it's very typical. Somebody comes into your space and shows you something that questions everything that you believe in. You know, you're going about your life and you do what you can, and you know you have some spiritual knowledge, but and it's been there all along, but you don't take it so seriously, and some things creep in, and you let yourself know it's okay, Krishna understands, and life carries on. But then a pure devotee comes, or someone who's going for the essential truth and the essence, and is really taking their spiritual life by storm. And automatically it feels like a threat. It feels like a threat. Because you can see that by their practice, even if they don't speak to you or say anything to you, just by the fact of their sincere practice, you think what am I doing? It's what am I doing? And if you're sincere, you can respond to that and think okay, let me bow down, let me help, let me serve this devotee so I can be like that also. But if there's insincerity, then you want to attack that person. You want to say, no, they're not really a devotee because. And that's what they did with these devotees. It was jarring to them to see these dancing white elephants. So then it became, no, you can't really be a devotee because you're a construction worker. So if you're a construction worker that can follow the 4 regulative principles and sincerely dedicate your entire life to Krishna, you're not a devotee. But if you're a Brahmana, but if you're born in a Brahmanical family but doing everything that's not under the sun that's not Brahmanical, you're still a Brahmana. Make sense? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. But it's put forward because then they are threatened. Because people feel threatened by purity. They're threatened by purity. They're threatened by the pure example. And us too. It is threatening when our material desires are, when someone by their simple presence is attacking our material desires. By their simple existence is attacking our material desires. That's hard to digest. But if there is anything that Srila Prabhupada stood for, if there's anything that Lord Chaitanya stood for, if there's anything that the Hare Krishna movement stands for, it is that every living being is a spirit, soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and no matter what they did or where they came from, they can adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness and be considered fully Vaishnav. No matter what their background, what their skin color, where they work, if they act like a Vaishnav, they're a Vaishnav. And this was revolutionary. This was revolutionary in the world. Because it was not the standards that India was sitting at currently. India had, people within India had manipulated the caste system. So that the rich remained rich and the poorer got poorer. They had degraded the Varnashram Dharma so that it was not understandable. But the truth is, hierarchy is a word, if you look at its etymology, and I was listening to Rupa Sanatan Prabhu some weeks ago, he was saying that the original word hierarchy meant that one was meant to be a holy order. A holy order. It's not just like, okay, you're the king and I'm the servant. But there was a divine thread that ran through that relationship. And it was interesting, he also mentioned that the word condescending. In English, now when you hear the word condescending, you think it means somebody who belittles somebody else. But when you look through the thread of history and you see what the original meaning of the word condescending was, it meant that somebody who may be of a higher spiritual status, not even status, just caliber, and is interacting with somebody that may not be at that level yet. Their interaction is so smooth and so full of love that the other person doesn't feel any gradient of honor, feels completely equal in that person's presence, even though they may be spiritually in different places. And that was what the word condescending meant. But over the years, we've shifted it to mean something demeaning. Just like the word hierarchy. Now when you hear it, it's like hierarchy. It's like, you want to push people up and push people down. But these words, they were not the original meaning, just like the caste system. There was a beauty in its application, without selfishness, without judgment. It was about lovingly embracing different people where they are at, and not forcing everybody to be something else. Like nowadays, you find there's limited things as to what people consider successful. Like if you look at, like, maybe not currently, but at least in the last 20, 30 years within an Indian community, if your child was not a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, they were nobody, or accountant, they were nobody. That was the limited faculties. But that's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. You're eliminating that anybody who has any other potential can be embraced and can be successful. So similarly, the caste system was embracing that people are different, and that by doing that labor with dignity, it didn't make them low. It didn't make them a laborer class like they were meant to look down upon. They were honored. They were honored for doing that labor with dignity. And so Srila Prabhupada saw through and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they saw through this materialistic presentation of religion and how religion was used for material profit. And through the haze that was existing in India, they brought the essence out. And with that essence, they were able to take it to the West and allow people from any background to be Krishna conscious. Now, the thing is that as our movement grows, prejudices can still exist. And even though we don't ourselves see it, because there's something called an unconscious bias. An unconscious bias. Like, for example, it's book marathon. You're walking down the street and you try to approach somebody and you go for the person with the red string because you think they'll take the book. I think now after 10 years or 20 years, book distributors are coming to realize that the red strings don't take the book. But even that on its own is a subtle conditioning. It's a subtle conditioning. It goes against the understanding that every living being has Krishna consciousness innate. It's inside. And it's our only duty to present and see what comes out. And so therefore, when we go on the streets to distribute books, we do so not because to make a devotee. No one can be made into a devotee because they are devotees already. They can only be presented the opportunity. But the real reason why we go out on the streets is so that we can increase in faith. Because when you see the devotee emerge from all the layers, then our faith increases. Really, in book distribution, my personal opinion is that I'm the atheist. And everybody else, when you interact with them, they give you the reasons why you should believe in Krishna. Because you'll be able to see it happen. Srila Prabhupada said that he didn't do any magic, he was just able to, it was not magic, but you could see the transformation in these people. And that was what was magical. The transformation is what was impressive. That you get yogis and they give you a little bit of gold, or they make some ash appear, or they fix your material situation. You know, I'm aware of one person who was having like huge career issues. It was in a job situation that was where the managers were very, very abusive. And then they changed their path of religion from one path to another path. And then suddenly, all these things that were broken in their lives, like, you know, in terms of their careers, everything got fixed. You know, like, it just all went. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, what does this mean? You know, what does this mean? And it means that this will give that person some faith that God can manipulate the material energy. But the true transformation is the transformation of character, not the fixing of things that we consider broken in our lives. And so Srila Prabhupada was meant to, his magic, like he said, his magic was that he could change the hearts of people. And so now as practitioners, if we have to be products of transformation, if we have to be representatives of Srila Prabhupada, it means that we have to transform. That we have to show transformation of the heart. Because if the heart doesn't transform, if our practice is lukewarm and the heart doesn't transform, then the impact that we will have on others will be minimal. But more than that, the joy that we experience within Krishna consciousness will be diluted. Srila Prabhupada said that the Srimad Bhagavatam was meant for a revolution, a spiritual revolution in the hearts of a misdirected civilization. And that revolution is for each and every one of us an individual revolution, an individual choice, an individual challenge, an individual war that each individual encounters in order to show the transformation that in itself speaks powerfully enough. So I didn't read a lot, but I felt like just what Srila Prabhupada was saying was completely potent. And if we just take these 2 points back that came up here, that the holy name is enough. If we put it forward, some people will respond, some people won't respond, that's okay. If we put it forward with sincerity, more people will respond. If we put it forward being transformed ourselves, even more people will respond. And that Srila Prabhupada's principles, that Krishna consciousness is for everyone and is beyond caste and creed and beyond our own unconscious biases, then we will be able to see the true transformation of heart happen for ourselves also. Because if we don't allow it for others, how will we experience it? If in my heart I think this person can't be a devotee because they're like this, this and that, all that does is mirror back to me. Those are the reasons why I can't be a devotee, because I harbor that understanding. So Prabhupada's vision was completely crystal, completely pure. And he stands again as that challenging example that's challenging us to come to a level of understanding and practice that's higher than what we would normally aim for. You get these game shows. You answer questions, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You answer questions, and then as you answer questions, the prize money keeps doubling. But if you answer one wrong, then you lose everything. And then at a certain point, you think, okay, this person should just fold now. Just take the money and go home. Don't chance it. In spiritual life, it can also be like that. It's like, okay, I got 2%, 3% transformation. My life is a little bit better now. I know how to manipulate the energy so I can joy in the mode of goodness. And it's okay, let's go home now. Let's fold. Let's just wait there. But we can't. We can't wait there because Srila Prabhupada gave us pure devotional service. And anything short of pure devotional service will leave us unhappy and unsatisfied and not fully transformed. So I'd stop here. If there's any thoughts or comments or questions that you'd like to put forward. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada lilamrta ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki. Nitai Gaura Premanande.